All right, guys. So today, on your way in, I know you guys picked up your guided notes, and I know you picked up your vocabulary sheet. So I just wanted to give these, make sure you guys all had those. Today, we're going to talk about the Black Death and how it really changed everything, especially in Europe. So there I put our lesson objective, right? Explain how at least one effect of the Black Death interacted with at least one historical factor to bring down a part of medieval society. So now, I shared with you there the kind of state standards, and you can look at that. We posted the PowerPoint and the notes and all that stuff. We posted that on Canvas, so if you want to take a look at that, you're free to do that. But first, before all that, I want to know what you know about the Black Death. So what we're going to do is we're going to think, pair, share. So I want you to think about what you know about the Black Death. Then I want you to pair up with your partners that are right next to you and talk to them about what you know. And then when you kind of come up with some stuff, write it down at the top of your sheet. And then we'll share it all together as a class. And whatever the class shares, you'll write down at the top of your sheet too. And we'll all kind of be on the same level playing field to know kind of, what we know going into the lesson. So go ahead, I'm going to give you guys a minute. Okay. So, I see you don't have a partner, so I'll come over here and talk to you.
Sounds good.
What do you know about the Black Death?
I know that it resulted in a lot of deaths.
That is
It
true.
was very contagious.
It was indeed. It was very contagious, yeah. And even contagious is even one of our academic vocabulary words, so no, for sure. It was something else. All right. Yeah. One thing I knew about coming into the Black Death was I knew about plague doctors. But even while doing this, I learned a lot more about plague doctors and how there's kind of misconceptions. So that was neat. All right, guys, we're going to come back together. So actually, I was talking to my friend Essence here, and she had some interesting things that she had to say about what she knows about the Black Death. So Essence, you want to share with us?
I know that it resulted in a lot of deaths and that it is very contagious.
It is, indeed. Both of those things are true. Does anybody have anything else? Anything? I know I had said that, I knew about plague doctors, right? There are these plague doctors, but even when I was doing research for the presentation, I learned a lot more and kind of the misconceptions that we have about plague doctors. So that was really interesting. So go ahead, write all of that at the top of your sheet. We're ready to begin, all right? So, while you guys are writing that down, keep writing. I just want to make a note before we start. Black Death is just kind of gross. I can't help that, but what I can do is minimize it, and I can warn you when something gross is going to happen. So that's what I'm going to do. When a gross thing comes up, we're going to be mature 6th graders, and we're going to all together, before the slide even happens, we're going to say, ew, that's gross, okay? And then it'll be out of our system, and we know it's gross, right? So I just want to let you guys know that. As you guys are wrapping that up, we're going to move into our first slide. So, medieval society, okay? So, medieval society is important for the Black Death because the Black Death is one of the things that led to medieval society's downfall. So, first of all, they were agrarian. There were lots of farms. People were farming for sustenance to feed their families, and they were also growing food to feed communities. And then also, religion. They said it was the government of everyday life. It was the church that was telling you, don't do this, do this. This is how you're going to pay for that sin you just committed, right? That was the church's job. Even though the king was still in charge, there wasn't really a division between church and state like we know now. And the church was very powerful with running many institutions like education, and then also they owned a lot of land. It's kind of a misconception to think of this in the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages had ended about 350 years before the Black Death. But there were still some of those leftover things. War was still very common. Learning, technological advancements, and hygiene were still very poor. And Europe was still kind of crawling itself out of the collapse of the Roman Empire to an extent. And feudalism was built on a series of relationships between people in society. So we're going to watch a video to kind of teach us about that, all right? So I'm going to give you guys a second. I'm just going to leave this up here real quick for you guys to catch up on notes. And then if you raise your hand if you need more time, and we'll do that. Okay. Yep. We'll wait a second. Does anybody have any questions about what we're learning here? Yes, Essence?
Could you go into more depth about what feudalism is?
Yeah, so feudalism, and we'll watch a video in a second, so that'll clear things up. But basically, it was the idea that the king was at the top, and then he owned all of the land by divine right, and then he would parcel it out to lesser lords, who would then parcel it out to lesser lords and to peasants. And so it was kind of this, supposed to be this symbiotic relationship, because then the peasants would work and they'd, give them grain and stuff like that, etc. and so on. But we'll actually, to answer that question, we'll watch this video.
Feudalism is a term that came into use in the 19th century to describe how society was structured during the High Middle Ages, that's between 1000 and 1300 AD. Earlier historians modelled a feudal system based on the exchange of land and services. Under this feudal system, most land in the kingdom belonged to the king, and some to the church. The king parcelled out large estates to great lords known as tenants-in-chief, in exchange for their military and political support. These great lords then parcelled out smaller portions of land to lesser lords on similar terms, who did the same to local lords, who did the same to peasants. The system is often represented as a pyramid, with the king at the top. The feudal system had its own vocabulary. A king or lord who gave land to a lesser lord became the latter's overlord. The person receiving the land became the vassal of the person who granted it, and the land itself was called a fief. These relationships could even cross national borders. After the Norman conquest, it was not uncommon for lords to hold lands in England and France, owing allegiance to both kings. Even the King of England was a vassal of the King of France, for the territories he had inherited there. Although this model reflects some fundamental truths about how medieval political culture worked, historians now think it is too simplistic to explain what was really going on. For one thing, the pyramid implies that all ties of loyalty were vertical, and that everyone was dependent on someone higher up in the pyramid. In fact, this wasn't always the case. Many feudal relationships were horizontal, among equals. For another, the kinds of services given in return for land could be very varied. For peasants, this was labour service or rent, while for landowners, it was more like an alliance. Vassals were expected to support their overlords politically and militarily. By the later Middle Ages...
Alright, so that's the video.